Welcome to Progressive Retail. I'm your host, Cory Mosley. We've got another great show planned for you today, including my interview with Scott Chuhinko, partner at technology company Trade Pending. Plus my segments, Don't Be Ridiculous, Here's a Thought, and The Way I See It. Typically, the first reports to come out month after month are the reports about the state of the new car market. Who's up, who's down, who's winning the competition war, and the most important question, are we hitting the target numbers that all of the experts say we should be hitting? However, for many dealers today, the bread and butter of their profitability lies in what's happening within the used car market. The trend is for used car sales to continue to soar with high off-lease volumes and what many believe to be a lot of opportunity for CPO sales. You even have manufacturers like Toyota who have created pre-owned leasing programs. At the core of the wholesaling and acquisition of quality pre-owned vehicles is the preference of dealers to stock their pre-owned lots with cars purchased from customers who have traded their vehicle. And based on a Google survey conducted October of last year, the second answer to the question, when you visit an auto dealer's website, what do you value, was researching the value of my trade-in. Now, the idea of a trade value option on your website isn't new, but we certainly have evolved past the basic value your trade contact form. To discuss this evolution and how the lead generation process has become more progressive for dealers, I've invited Scott Chuhinko, partner at technology firm Trade Pending, to discuss. Scott, thank you for joining me on the show today.
I really appreciate you having me, Cory. Thanks.
Absolutely. So, listen, Trade Pending, what is it and how does it help dealers?
Well, what we do at Trade Pending is we help the dealer communicate to their consumers about what the market is for their trade. So with that, we can help them, both with conversion and also with consumer engagement. And the way that we're communicating that really helps get that consumer down to what the reality of the car is worth in a quick and non-confrontational way.
So with products in the marketplace like trade-in marketplace, instant cash offers, where does something like this fit into the mix?
Well, the way that Trade Pending works is very quickly we put a market report in front of the consumer, and in a very transparent way, we're showing that consumer how the dealer is getting to the value of their car.
Okay. So what trends are you guys seeing? So you're aggregating a lot of data. So what trends are you seeing now in the marketplace that dealers need to be aware of as it relates to trade valuations and consumers? So in the opening segment, I talked a little bit about the idea that, the number two, based on that survey, the number two thing a customer is doing when they're going to the website is looking at the trade valuations. So what trends are you seeing for dealers in that area?
And that's absolutely true. And one of the things that we found, because most dealers are not capturing a lot of information from those consumers, and where we see the huge drop-off is, with the usability. Anything that is difficult for a customer to do these days, they're dropping off really quick and they're going somewhere else. It has to be really, really quick and really, really simple, or you're going to lose that customer and you're going to lose their interest.
So what are some of the mistakes? Because I like to go to mistakes and I like to go, what are the best dealers doing? So what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing in the marketplace as it relates to the handling of the trade appraisal and walking them through that process?
Well, one of the big things that we see is, dealers are trying to get the customer through a really long process with many, many questions, and then they're getting a ton of drop-off. The consumer isn't, really completing the process. So if the consumer's not completing, that's really a lose-lose situation. Consumer certainly isn't going to be happy because if they were happy with what was happening, they would have finished, right?
Right.
And then the dealer ends up having absolutely no information about that consumer. Another big thing that we find is, it's tough enough for dealers to get themselves branded, when they're fighting against the other dealers plus the manufacturer. We see oftentimes, especially on the VDP, you see logos all over the dealer's VDP, branding other companies, and then even pulling them off of the dealer's VDP. I think it's really important for dealers, especially today, to be focused on branding themselves. And really making that customer experience about that dealership.
And what do you think about the valuation? What is the right valuation? How does someone know? Because old school was, and we go way back. I mean, you're from the dealer world. GM came up, sold your first car back in
80.
We want to date yourself a
I
little
don't even
bit.
want to say that, right?
The 80s, right? So
the good thing is when I say that, people are like, "That's impossible." I'm like,
there you go.
Thank you very much.
It's those juices and berries.
Yeah.
So when thinking about the valuation and thinking about giving the customer that information, old school was like it was just a form. like, hey, send it and we'll get back to you. So
Yeah, exactly.
now, obviously, there's a multitude of different sources to generate that. What are your thoughts about how to create the proper valuation so you're not getting yourself into trouble where a customer's saying, hey, this is too low, or you guys are trying to,
Exactly, and that's what we see a lot too, especially with those longer processes. If you're asking the customer 30 or 40 different questions, when you do get to a number, they're going to have an expectation that that's going to be what they're going to get for the car.
Sure.
So we absolutely take a different approach where we say, okay, this is the car that you have. Here's the market for that car. Here are the other vehicles in the market. Here's how this dealer goes about calculating what the car is worth to them. So opposed to saying, this is what your very specific car is worth, we're capturing information very quickly, showing them the entire market, giving the consumer a lot more information. That really puts the customer at ease, and now they can have a broader conversation about, how does that consumer's vehicle fit into the market.
So one of the little pieces of technology that I thought was really cool when I was playing with the product a little bit was the finisher, the finishing of my, you start typing in and it kind of starts to finish for you. Now, I'm not a tech guy. I don't ever pretend to be. I mean, I have all the gadgets, of course, whether or not I need them or not. But I'm curious as to what's the impact of having that kind of finish your sentence, like I like to call it, technology built in. What's the impact for a consumer or a dealer? How does that help?
Well, that speaks directly to the usability of the product, and we're calling that type ahead. That's the way that modern search is done. If you go to Google, what do? Do you start clicking on drop-down boxes and pinging servers, or do you start typing what you're looking for? And then Google guesses what you're looking for and you click on it. Facebook does the same thing.
Sure.
Amazon does the same thing.
So we're used to it.
Yeah, people are absolutely used to doing it that way. That's the way they want to do it. It allows a consumer to finish the process much, much quicker. So when you're speaking to usability, absolutely that has been very effective for us as far as getting the consumer to complete the process, putting something in front of them that they've been used to doing.
Now, when it comes to, because I want to bring a little controversy here. I can't make it all easy. So as a controversial topic, lead handling is always a controversial topic. Who, in your opinion, is the right person to really be handling that appraisal? Should it be a pre-owned manager? Should it be internet? Should it be BDC? Who is the optimal person, in your opinion, to handle that?
Well, the appraisal or communicating to the customer about the value are, in my mind, two different things.
Okay.
We're communicating to that consumer about the value of the car in the market, but we're not actually doing an appraisal.
Okay.
So in my opinion, anybody who's going to be talking to a consumer needs to know how to communicate with that consumer about,
right.
Well, specifically about the value of that trade.
Okay.
The worst thing that I think can happen as a consumer, and I'm sure you've had positive and negative consumer experiences where what's better, when somebody answers your question or when somebody says, oh wait, I've got to go get the guy that can answer your question.
Right, of course.
So, the long answer is everyone needs to be able to do it. To me, inside the dealership, whether they have a salesperson doing it or whether they have someone in the BDC doing it, to me, that's the same person.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, I think in the future, the salesperson in the BDC is going to be the same person. So I would just say,
sounds good.
Make sure.
At least.
Well,
I mean, this is progressive retail, but
well, I do believe that, and the most important thing to me is make sure those people that are communicating are qualified to do it and understand how to read the market and communicate that to the consumer.
So tell us, what are some of your best dealers? So you're aggregating data, you've got clients all over the country. What are some of the best dealers doing as it relates to the handling of that process, generating leads, converting based on that appraisal
Yeah,
model?
I love that question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The important thing is that anytime you have the ability to touch that customer, that's an opportunity to be communicating with them about the value of what their car is worth. And I always, since 1988, have liked starting...
The 80s.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say that. I've always liked starting the conversation about the trade because that gives you so much information already about the customer. How many miles they driving, what color did they like last time. There's just a lot of information when you're communicating with them about that trade. So, I would say anywhere where you could touch them, and I've got a lot of dealers doing different things where they've got kiosks not only in the showroom but in the service drive.
Sure.
Where a customer in the service drive can go up and...
Like appraisal while you wait?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, look at a market report.
Right.
While they're waiting for their car. And if that person goes up to that kiosk and does that, there's a good chance that at least somewhere in their mind
they might be thinking about it.
Because why would they People don't need to know what their car's worth unless they're getting rid of it, right?
Now that might be an interesting way to connect. A lot of people are placing full-time salespeople in the service departments to prospect. So it seems like there might be a good connection there if a dealer is currently doing that piece of putting something like that with it.
Yeah, no doubt. And we have dealers, obviously there's a lot of dealers that have, an equity salesperson that are working the service lane. This is just giving that person an additional tool too, and another way to get that consumer talking to them, about possibly moving into another car. So that's one place. Also, from their website, obviously, I have a lot of dealers are using it in email campaigning, with the email marketing they're doing. I've definitely seen a trend lately towards people using it through social media. I have several dealers that are using the product through Facebook ads, for example.
Okay.
So, anywhere that you really could be touching the customer is an opportunity to be talking to them about the trade. And again, starting that way, I think it's a great way to start the conversation.
So the last thing thank you for that, you like the integration and distribution. So you really think that idea should be anywhere it could be?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you?
Awesome. Well, listen, Scott, I thank you always. We go back a number of years. I thank you for coming in and joining us today.
I really appreciate it, Corey. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Now it's time for
Don't Be Ridiculous.
Where the parties involved shall remain nameless, but the story must be shared. So here's a scenario. Single point dealer, small volume store, one primary sales manager. Sales manager gets gravely ill and has to have an operation and is ultimately deemed bedridden indefinitely. What would you do? Well, this dealer decided he would let the manager work from his bedroom and desk deals, leaving the salespeople with an ineffective TO, no sales leadership, and inconsistent process for even working those deals. Deals plummeted, and the dealership's financial solvency even came into question by the manufacturer, all fueled by the desire to remain loyal to the employee. Now, while I'm not advocating for putting anybody in the unemployment line, this clearly was a bad decision. And to that, I simply have to say,
Don't be ridiculous.
Now, if you have a Don't Be Ridiculous story to share, please email us at cbtshow@corymosley.com. If we use your story on the show, we will send you your very own Don't Be Ridiculous t-shirt. Now, here's a thought. I have to say that sometimes you have to just take off the blinders and simply do what's right for the business and the rest of their team. You want to set up a work from home scenario for an employee? By all means, go ahead and do it. But those job responsibilities have to be reflective of the working situation and outcome. Profitability and sales growth must be the top priority. Finally, the decision-making on the part of that dealer may have been motivated by a sense of loyalty, but it raises an issue that I believe is plaguing our industry, the issue of the sacred cow, the person or process that seems to be off the table whenever the subject of change is brought up. As a strategic consultant to dealers for the past 12 years, I've seen this time and time again. The need to create workarounds to find solutions to challenges because the real issue doesn't get addressed, because that issue is considered a non-starter. Or even, as a former high school champion Lincoln Douglas debater, it's hard to win a debate when at any point the conversation can be ended with, "That's my dealership and that's what I want to do." I remember receiving a frantic call on a Saturday from a multi-franchise dealer telling me he doesn't know what to do with his GSM. He said, "Corey, he doesn't like to talk to customers. He's ineffective and he's on a guarantee. And I've been moving him around in multiple positions for 10 years. I told him this. Loyalty and tenure are bonuses, but a person must still be highly effective at their job to be successful. The market is going to punish those that don't evolve, that don't commit to the changes required to compete. I've been in the industry long enough now to have beaten the drum and tried to have tough conversations about killing these sacred cows, only to drive past those dealers several years later to see that they're no longer there. That's not what I want for my industry, and I don't think you want that either. So I challenge you to have the tough conversations and make the tough choices to push, pull, and yank your business forward so we can all ensure our future for the years to come. And that simply is the way I see it. I want to thank you as always for tuning in, and don't forget to go to CoryMosley.com/CBT show to submit show ideas, give feedback, or even be a guest on a future show. This has been Progressive Retail exclusively on the CBT Automotive News Network. I'm Cory Mosley, and I will see you next week.